district regular meeting together or to attention. And we start always with the roll call vote.
All right, Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Here.
Manager Schottmuller, President Anderson.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. We may proceed. First item is setting a meeting agenda. Are there any changes or additions? No, if not, motion is in order to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you.
Manager Schmaltz.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Roll call.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Okay. Have an agenda. The consent agenda is next. And that has one item. It's the minutes from the regular meeting on December 18th. Is there any objection to accepting the consent agenda as presented? Okay, hearing none, we can move on. That is accepted by consent. Let's go to number 4, public open forum. Are there any visitors tonight?
We have a
Emily,
couple
you're
of people in the audience. If anyone would like to speak, you may raise your hand and the board president will call on you.
Can we please hear who is visiting with us tonight? There's only 2. Do you want to control that, Emily? I can't. Can we get their names, please?
Yep, we have a Kim Hugh, Marine Lake, and then Michael.
Michael?
Yep.
Who's Michael?
I'm not sure, but participants are allowed to use the chat and they can rename themselves if they want to add their last name. And if anyone would like to speak in the public open forum, you can go to the reactions toolbar and raise your hand.
Okay. Are the 2 guests from the watershed?
There's no way for me to tell.
Well, I'm asking them. Normally, if you come in person, you have to sign a sheet that gives your name and address and whether you're in the district or not. So I'm just trying to keep that aspect of it not noticeable or informed. So can the guests please respond to that? It's not. Okay, Chuck.
Kim, Manager Anderson, President Anderson, Kim has put in the chat. Hi, I'm just learning. I am on the, I believe, Carnelian Marine St. Croix Watershed District.
Okay. And the other guest?
I have temporarily enabled unmute for everyone, or feel free to use the chat.
What did she say to use it?
Emily is, unmuted the
Okay.
guests and I'm thinking
All right.
use the chat as well, but
All
I
right.
didn't have time.
Well, let's move on. The next item is a public open forum. Would anyone like to address the board of the 2 visitors that we have? This is open session. Doesn't have to be an item on the agenda. Okay, I'll ask one more time. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Advisory committee updates. Who's going to do that?
Yeah, president manager, normally Aiden would do that. He's not here this evening. And if any of the other staff that were present want to participate in those, I could just quickly read through.
If you could, just for the record, for the
Typical introduction,
Yeah.
especially of a new member, Dave Gold. that the board, added to the advisory committee last meeting. He's a retired NRCS staff member, so he should be a good addition to that role. Emily provided a update on an overview of the floodplain resiliency action plan, which the board had approved last July, I believe. I've been working through a number of communications with our partners, including the cities. We're waiting on some input from the city of Forest Lake. Adrian went through then the updates on the programs and projects throughout the district, as well as the proposed boat expansion for slips at Tim's Marina, and then highlighted the acquisition of the Bone Lake South property, as well as some other properties that the district has under ownership. Roughly, I think, a dozen total and another dozen
Mhm.
in easements.
All right. Any questions? All right, let's move on. New business. 2025 Blue Water Science Reports. Steve McComas is here to talk with us tonight about his work.
I'll pull up your.
Okay. Well, thanks, Madam Chair and Board and others. And again, it's always a great opportunity to be here and be able to talk. So what I was gonna do is kind of just go through the lakes that we evaluated and surveyed last year. And we'll probably start with Bone Lake. Here is the lakes that we were working on in 2025 and primarily for AIS. And that includes curlyleaf, milfoil, and flowering rush. All right, Bone Lake is up. Bone Lake curlyleaf. We did our early season curlyleaf pondweed delineation on April 7th. And we did find some curlyleaf. If you look down in the southwest part of the lake, that is where we had enough red dots being projected heavy growth, because at this time of the year, these are only 3-4 inches tall. So based on rake densities of these stems, that's where we get the reds or a yellow if it's minor, and green if there's only one stem, for example. But there was enough curlyleaf down there in the southwest end that we circled up about, what did we get? 3.66 acres. So that was treated. And then we came back on May 13th, which this last year, that was right at peak curlyleaf growing time period. It was a bit earlier this year. The water was warming up. The ice was out a little bit early, and the control in that treatment area was very good. You can see that it's kind of shaded there. We have a couple of yellow dots, but otherwise very little curlyleaf present. However, there had been some sprouting of curlyleaf after our delineation, and that was in the southeast side there, but that's mostly lake growth. And then up in that northwest end of Bone Lake, kind of an area that also generates curlyleaf pretty regularly, but that's also mixed in with water lilies. So it's a little bit of a challenge, and usually we don't treat in there when it's right mixed in with lilies. So that was what we did in 2025. The next map shows our curlyleaf treatment areas for the last 10 years in Bone Lake. And you can see it's that southwest end has had some persistent curlyleaf growth. And then there's some northeast areas too that have been treated for a few years. Those the other areas of the lake have not been treated in the last 10 years. We'll keep tracking those areas as we go forward. For Eurasian milfoil, we did find some Eurasian milfoil. When we were doing curlyleaf, in April, we were looking for milfoil. No milfoil was found in April. The next official delineation was May 23rd. And that should have been appropriate time to look for milfoil. We did find milfoil at 17 sites, but those dots are all green. It was all relatively light growth, scattered, and not really forming beds. So in those cases, we don't usually treat. And so there was no treatment for milfoil in Bone Lake in 2025. We came back in July, which should have been the peak growing season for time period for milfoil. And although we did find some milfoil, heck, we found it at 25 sites, but most of the dots are green, indicating either light growth, meaning it's single stems, or a crown. When milfoil grows from a crown root structure, you may get 7 or 8 stems. And although they might hit the surface, they're usually pretty well separated and do not form a bed and do not form a navigational problem nor an ecological problem. So it looks like we came out okay with milfoil in 2025 by not treating. The hotspot map, which is shown next, is shows over a 10-year period where we found any milfoil that had either a moderate growth or a heavy growth. And that southwest side has been pretty consistent with producing some milfoil growth, as well as the northwest side as well, and some up there in the northeast part. But that's been over a 10-year period. And if we look at just the last 5 years, we've had a little bit of a change in the milfoil growth patterns. We still have milfoil in some of the same areas, but it's been a lot lighter over the last 5 years, from 2020 to 2025. So maybe there is a trend going there where milfoil is still present, but not necessarily producing these heavy or abundant growth communities that would dictate some treatment. That's milfoil.
That's a good question
Sure.
on that, if you don't mind. And board feel, if you need to ask a question, just do it. And let's keep this active between the two of us conversation. Go back to that one where you showed the 10-year and you
Yeah,
showed,
that's
is this
right
it?
over there,
it
yeah,
is, this
right
one.
there.
Does that clustering happen because of current, do you think, or what would cause that to always gravitate toward those two areas?
I think over the years of experience, I think it has to do with the sediment composition.
Okay,
If the sediments are conducive to growth, some years it'll produce growth more often than not.
Mhm.
The rest of the lake, a lot of the lake shore is just not very conducive
Mhm.
to heavy milfoil
well, it's
growth.
not always there kind of current thing, it's already baked into the sediment.
Boy, it seems like if the sediments are conducive to growth, that's where you'll get some growth.
Okay,
That seems to be the primary factor for milfoil.
all right, thank you.
Sure. So then, and what's happened, the sediment composition possibly can change over time too.
Mhm.
So if nitrogen things become a little bit less, it might be impacting milfoil growth as well. Well, we know that there's zebra mussels in Bone Lake. At least it's been listed for zebra mussels. We're not finding very many. 2019 was the first year, found it at the public access, and treated it. Since then, we haven't found many zebra mussels. They found some veligers. That's the next slide. The next slide is showing an area that where we did find a single male, and the DNR has found some veligers, but in the last couple of years we have not found adult zebra mussels in Bone Lake. So it might still be at a very, very late growth phase. We'll see what happens. When it gets to a critical threshold, critical density, that's when you really start seeing an expansion. So this is kind of summarized for Bone Lake for 2025. There's some curlyleaf milfoil declines, it appears. And adult zebra mussels have been observed, but they are not right now at this point going into any type of exponential growth. And no starry stonewort has been observed as well. The next lake up, Comfort Lake. We were out on April 8th to do our delineation, and we didn't find enough curlyleaf to really produce a treatment. The black lines there are the boat tracks. So even though we might go fast, we are covering we're covering the shoreline. And those, especially areas that we know where there's been curly leaf. So in April, we didn't have enough curly leaf to treat, so we didn't treat. However, coming back in May, we did get some sprouting since that April 8th delineation. And primarily lake growth, but it's still in the lake. I don't think that was a big nuisance when we were there. If it's light growth, again, it's mostly single stems without forming a mat. When it forms a mat at the surface, that's going to be a yellow or a red dot. So it's present, pretty widespread, but at this point, at least last year, it was light growth. In 23 and 24, we had more growth. Milfoil, there has been a Floridone treatment in 2022 and a spot treatment in 2023, but we did not treat milfoil in 2024 and 2025. Our first survey in April, we didn't see any milfoil. On May 23rd, we found some milfoil at light growth, and that's always kind of a challenge from a management standpoint. Do you treat light growth there, thinking that it could turn into heavy growth or not? And usually we don't treat light growth. You can, but we didn't treat it here. And then we come back and toward the end of July, which is kind of peak milfoil season, and we found 46 sites of milfoil, but it was still relatively light and probably more in the north end of the lake than any place else. So that's something to keep tracking. It looks like the Floridone treatment is still kind of holding in there. We'll be tracking that as we go. And there's some inkling that milfoil certainly is in the lake, but not necessarily producing heavy patches and heavy beds of growth. We look at the hotspot map. Here's about a 10 or 11 year map of all the moderate to heavy growth sites that we found in that 10-year period, 11-year period, and pretty much around the lake, kind of collared, which is pretty typical, collared around the lake, and but not necessarily every year. And then when we look at just the last 5 years, we can see that there's been still milfoil in the northern end of the lake, a little bit on the south end, not nearly as much along the sides, though there are some red triangles there indicating heavy growth. But it looks like milfoil in the last few years has been fairly well controlled. But again, it's a little bit of an unpredictable plant from the standpoint that every year it can be a little bit different. Those are the hotspot maps. If we look at the summary, again, we can see some variability with curly leaf. We had curly leaf growth spurt in 22, 23, 24, but we didn't really treat in 2025. We'll have to see how it goes this year. Milfoil, one of the challenges here again is that sometimes it is mixed in with lilies, and the DNR has been reluctant to let us treat milfoil within the lilies. So some of it, we have a little bit of a restriction from that standpoint. Long-term growth has been light to moderate, and again, nitrogen might be a factor there to a degree as well. Floridone whole lake treatment, we're getting 2-3 years out of that. That's pretty good. We'll see if we sometimes the trend is we might have a year or two of spot treatments to fill in to help, and at some point another Floridone treatment that might become cost effective. If we treat more than about 15% of the lake as milfoil, it becomes cost effective to consider a Floridone treatment. Next lake up, Keewatin. This was a point intercept survey, and Keewatin is always an interesting and a fun lake. We had 23 different species, submerged species. I don't think we had any non-native species found. And the lake, some people might say it's weedy, but it has a lot of plants. It's 88% coverage, so there's not many areas where there aren't any plants. We had 23 submerged species in a lake in this part of the state is phenomenal. That is very, very high diversity. You can see that, well, you can see the dots, you can't see all the species, but, Elodea, coontail, flat stem pondweed are certainly common. And then we have a variety of other species that are less common, but, the setting of Keewatin is perfect for aquatic plant growth. It's been relatively diverse like this now for at least the last couple point intercept surveys. Next up, Little Comfort. We have we did a survey out there last couple of years. We did find some, this lake has had some filamentous algae in the past with some large areas, near shore areas with floating filamentous. But also the question was, well, what's the milfoil doing? In 2024, we did a survey like a meander survey like this. We found some milfoil, but not necessarily nuisance milfoil. The first map over there on the far left, that is coontail. By far, coontail is the most common plant in Little Comfort. It really overshadows a lot of the milfoil that is growing, and we only found milfoil at a couple spots. That's the middle map, couple spots in 2025, and it was light growth. The lilies are also fairly common around parts of the lake, the north end, that southeast end, especially fairly abundant lilies. The lake's in pretty good shape that way. Not quite the diversity of Keewatin, but it has a lot of healthy, abundant plant growth, which is good for water quality as well. Next lake up, Moody. We've been tracking Moody with a point intercept survey for the last number of years. In April, the point intercept survey, we did find some curly leaf. These are curly leaf maps. There weren't many other native plants at that point, but the curly leaf plants or curly leaf map has a lot of curly leaf, fairly well distributed, but with light growth. And we were kind of wondering what would happen without any treatment. How does that then relate? Again, the map on the left is projected light growth because you only get 1 or 2 stems on a rake. And even if you have 4 stems on a rake, which is from regular density ratings, is very light growth, but 4 curly leaf stems in April is probably going to produce heavy growth, probably produce 100 or 200 stems in another month. So we'll look at the rake densities and make projected growth. So that April map is projected growth. Well, it turns out that it was fairly good predictor because we still had fairly widespread curly leaf in May. It's peak growing this last year, but mostly light growth. There were a few red dots out there where we had curly leaf in the shallower water coming to the surface, but it was sporadic, not really massive mats of curly leaf. So pretty widespread, but mostly light growth. So that is Moody Lake. Shields Lake is also another lake where we have been doing point intercept surveys with our surveys. We do an early season curly leaf delineation, and then we do a late season for curly leaf, mid-May, as an assessment. Now we did find some projected heavy growth in April. We were assuming that very well could then turn into heavier growth if it was not true. We didn't treat in 2025 to see what happened, and in May we did find some heavy growth in Shields Lake. There were some areas where we had red dots indicating that there was some curly leaf actually growing to the surface in this case. And the early season predictor was fairly good for what we found then in mid-May, which was the peak curly leaf growing time of the year. So Shields has fairly widespread or well-distributed curly leaf. In this case, last year, a little bit of a heavier growth than maybe usual, but we didn't treat. So next lake up is Forest Lake. That's our last lake. And it's a big lake and a lot of things going on in Forest. For whatever happened, for what we always try to delineate Forest as late as possible to make sure we get as much curly leaf to sprout as we can. So April 23rd is really late, putting the crunch on these applicators because they gotta be out there by mid-May theoretically to treat. Well, there was a lot of curlew in all three basins, first basin, second lake, third lake. It turns out we had 167 acres and we were fairly aggressive last year treating that acreage. And you can see if we hadn't treated, this is projected growth. If we hadn't treated, we've been looking at curly leaf surfacing over most of Third Lake in the nearshore area anyway, much of Second Lake, and then a number of areas in First Lake. So we did go ahead, circle up 167 acres, and it was treated. And the results in the next slide show that we had very good control of curly leaf. And most of the curly leaf that we had delineated was treated, very little curly leaf outside of our treatment areas. So we treated almost all the curly leaf last year in forest and had good control. There shouldn't have been much of a problem with curly leaf right through June and into early July. So you can see our polygons there. They're oranges, the treatment areas, and a lot of black dots indicating not much growth at all. And there's some green dots, but that is good control for curly leaf pondweed. And then if we look at the hotspot map over the last 10, 12 years, we can see that, yeah, curly leaf will grow in Forest Lake. Not to this extent here every year, but we've treated 150, 160 acres in the past too. Theoretically, after a big treatment year like that, we would expect less acres this year. It really knocks it back. Doesn't eliminate it though. Milfoil is also in Forest Lake, came in 2015, the first year that it was observed. Pretty aggressive in 2015, treated 30 acres. Since then, it's been, off and on, but primarily in First Lake and a little bit in Second Lake, not much in Third Lake. The April 23rd delineation was fairly early for milfoil. And while we found some milfoil up in the First Lake in that northwest area, that was kind of a preliminary survey delineation. We're going to wait to see what else is going to come in. So the next map shows our delineation in June. And in June, we did circle up 47 acres. A lot of it was in First Lake, not much in Second Lake. Second Lake, in fact, we didn't treat at all last year. We didn't see any milfoil in June in Second Lake, but we did see some milfoil in Third Lake. That's the first time we've seen some milfoil in Third Lake at more than one spot. So we treated about an acre per site, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And hopefully that'll knock it back because Third Lake, that's the first time we've seen milfoil now in Third Lake. It probably came from Second Lake that year of the big growth in Second Lake a couple of years ago. We spent quite a bit of money and hit it was very aggressive, knocked the heck out of it. But some of the milfoil probably got into Third Lake, but we're aggressive in Third Lake treating, over-treating really. And so we'll see if we can't knock it out of Third Lake and try to keep it contained into First Lake for the most part.
Steve, excuse me, Madam President, does the herbicide used for curly leaf pondweed impact EWM?
It can, but the herbicide for curly leaf is a contact herbicide. So it'll theoretically kill any plant on contact. Thing is, there's not much milfoil actively growing in early May when they're treating. So you might ding it a bit, but you're probably not killing it.
So probably a carryover from the previous treatment on Second.
And Second Lake, yes. Yeah, I bet you that was. So we'll keep tracking that. And then in October, our assessment in October was we did see some milfoil, not in outside of the treatment areas. And we saw a couple of little dots in Third Lake in October, but everything else was pretty well treated, and especially in our treatment areas, being fairly aggressive like that. We had good control of Eurasian milfoil. Here's a hotspot map. You can see that those black dots down in Third Lake, Those are from 2025. Otherwise, First Lake is the lake that's had some of the most common milfoil. And look at Second Lake, that 1 year will last 2024. You can see those polygons there. First time it showed up, aggressively treated it, knocked it out for 2025. All
But
right.
have you calculated any percentage to the drop in these, EWMs and curly leaf and all of that since 2015? I think that's the 10 years that you're looking at. But in the beginning, I mean, Forest Lake was covered with this stuff, so it's
Yeah.
dropped quite a bit, and I think that's important to qualify for the public so that they can get a sense for just how clean this has become.
Yeah. Well, one way to look at that might be the next slide.
Okay.
We'll just look at the annual treatments of curly and milfoil. So we start with, we started treating herbicides, or at least our record started at 2009. There's some harvesting prior to that. You can see curly fluctuates. There's a couple years there, 168, 155 acre, 3 years in a row. We treated pretty heavily, and then backed off for a couple of years. It came back 114 acres, 2016, and 169, 2017, and then we had some off years. So that's curly leaf. Milfoil has been, we've hit it pretty hard. We've been pretty aggressive with milfoil. Couple years there, several years, we had 40 to 50 acres of treatment. And 2021 and 2021, 22, 23, not much. And we've had a little bit of a surge in the last couple of years. So it's kind of going, if you were going to graph that out, you have a sine wave. Highs and lows.
So conditions have a lot to do with it.
For milfoil, yes. And also for curly leaf. The sediments can be conducive to growth, and they are. They can all support moderate to heavy growth in forests. And after that, it is the climate. It's the ice on, ice off, temperature, sunlight, even cloudy days can have an impact on curly leaf. If we get several weeks of cloudy days early in the year, curly leaf is pretty much inhibited. If I'm running a little bit late, I apologize. But the last species we should look at then is flowering rush. We have been fairly aggressive on flowering rush too. One of the things we've noticed is that we have some Sagittaria coming in as well. It seems to be expanding a little bit. Sagittaria is the picture on the right. It looks a lot like flowering rush. Sometimes we got to go in and pull that to see what the root looks like, because that's the main way. Without a flower, the best way to tell between Sagittaria and flowering rush is the root structure. Curly or flowering rush typically will grow along its rhizome too, so it's more linear than Sagittaria. So that's one way to tell them apart. But this year we had pretty good control with flowering rush. July 11th, we delineated 67 sites to treat. And at this point in July, it was mostly light growth. 67 sites, we only treated less than an acre. And then we treat, well, we know that flowering rush, it sprouts over the course of the summer. Different sites will produce different. We have 425 documented sites, and not every site produces flowering rush every year. So we come back in September, we had good control, but we had new sprouting. So we did spot treatments again. In the second treatment, we had 51 sites of flowering rush, down a little bit from the first go around, and we treated that. And then we come back in October, and we found out that we only in the October assessment, we only had 28 sites of curly leaf flowering rush, and at less than, at 0.06 acres. So we have flowering rush. We mark it as a site, but it might only be 8 to 10 stems. It might be 100 to 200 square feet of area. So that lends itself to spot treatment. The watershed district has done a great job at collecting flower heads, keep it from going to seed. So it's one of the few populations in the Midwest with a fertile seed producing population. If we don't control the flowers, they can produce new growth. So just in a summary here, 2025 flowering rush summary anyway, we can see we treated, we did our first delineation, had 2 treatments, and by the time we were done, the last bullet, we started at 7.8 acres in 2014. We're down to 0.06 acres in 2025, even though we had 28 sites, but they're small. That's a 99% reduction. So it's still around the lake, but at very, very small patches, so to speak. And then the last graph here shows kind of how we were able to knock it down initially, but you got to keep at it. It's just a tenacious plant that way. And we had good control in 2025. It might be our best control yet, 99%. So with that, there's a couple of bullets here to wrap it up. And all the Watershed District lakes have these are interesting and have great natural features. Now, what we're finding is that with some management, you know, the invasive species, healthy lake, recreational opportunities, we can maintain all of those. And then in general, AIS and including flowering rush, we're still learning as we go. And the challenge is to keep managing for ecological and for economical methods and approaches. So with that, any questions?
Thank you. They're very.
I have one question. Steve, I
Yeah.
can't recall, but it was either curly-leaf pondweed or the original water milfoil that we treated, where the DNR forced us to switch herbicides because of walleye fry stocking.
Yes.
And that doubled our cost. I'm just kind of curious, will that have to be done again this year, or is it only done when they stock the fry the first year?
Nope, that's kind of ongoing. And I do think that I forget the herbicide we used. It wasn't Dicquat. Dicquat's the herbicide that's the cheapest, most economical, and it knocks the heck out of curly leaf. But there was one paper in the 1990s where some DNR folks, not Minnesota folks, other folks said, yeah, they think they had some impact on the walleyes. So with that's why we can't use Dicquat in lakes where they're stocking walleye fingerlings. So they don't want to take any chances. So that pushes us to the next level, next tier herbicide, which was more expensive. And I'm not sure we can go back to Dicquat unless the DNR really evaluates some of this research and lets us go back to Dicquat. Yeah.
Well, my question is then, so next year, even if they don't stock walleye fry, we still have to use the more expensive one?
Yes. Yeah.
Why doesn't the DNR then pay for it? It's their fry.
It is. Well, I think, it's not me so much, but there have been a number of herbicide applicators that have asked that same question because they would prefer to use Dicquat if possible too, because it's cheaper for them too. I mean, anyway, that's been an ongoing discussion, Steve.
Well, I think we need to get it out of the discussion stage into the action stage. If everybody is spending all this extra money, then the DNR should run a test. We're paying the extra money. They should run the test, or we should have somebody like yourself run a test to see whether Dicquat can be used or not and get some additional data besides one paper in a state that's not even next to us.
Mike, you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Yes, Madam President, Manager Schmaltz, managers, I did make a note to staff will contact MACERC about the research, this potentially. But also I remember that discussion that the DNR, it was a matter of that, we could, as long as, if we were treating in advance of them placing the fry, it was a scheduling conflict this last
Is
year.
that what happened this last year?
Yeah, within a particular window, it might have been 3 days or something. But we'll have to go back and look at, I was gonna try to do a quick search on that.
We have been told they're gonna be stocking the same prize this year.
Yeah, so I think if,
Okay.
but if we
So
can
it's
do,
more timing.
that was my understanding from
Good.
DNR, yes.
Yeah, because they've been stocking walleye fry since 2000. I mean, they stock walleye fry every year, every other year. So it's something, and we've been using Dicquat all those years, so I don't know why it's a problem all of a sudden. But
Good point, Steve. I think there is a little bit of ray of hope here that, like Mike mentioned, if the year they're not stocking fry, if they stock fingerlings, we'd probably be in better shape too. I know there's a few other lakes around the state where these questions are fairly,
Mhm,
certainly poignant as well.
mhm.
Lake Osakis is
Sure.
one of those lakes.
Well, maybe, this is the solution. We can just work together and create a calendar that works.
And also, you're right, and this would be a good
Mhm.
time in the next couple of months to have that discussion with the DNR.
Great,
Right.
thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Yes,
Manager
Manager Anderson?
Taves, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Nokomis, back to Moody Lake. The samples back in April and May might have been pretty thin, but boy, by the middle of July and end of July, you could almost walk on the weeds on the whole west, south, and part of the lake. It was
Mhm.
it was even tough to get a kayak out from dock out into the water to be able to be on the lake with a kayak.
That's good news, bad news. I mean, the good news is that that's not curlew at that time of the year. That's probably coontail or a native plant. Because the lake is clearing up a little bit, we're getting more abundant plant growth. We get better light penetration. So those plants in July and going into August, it's not curlew. It is native plants, and I think based on in the past we've done some surveys out there in late summer. As I recall, it's coontail is the dominant plant that can grow to be very, very, very thick as you've experienced. That can grow so thick that it will release from the bottom sediments. It has holdfast. It's not a true rooted plant, and then it has these mats. And as I recall, we've been out there on Moody Lake having to actually. We just have to paddle or motor around those mats, the coontail mats. They're 2-3 feet thick.
Yeah.
And
What's the other one out there? Starts with an E.
Eladia.
Yeah.
Eladia can be another problematic plant, but Eladia not so much on a perennial basis. Coontail can grow heavy in year after year. Eladia and these flat stem and some of these other native plants pretty much are more variable and fluctuate in growth from year to year. But that plant growth in Moody at midsummer is probably because the lake is a little bit more clear than it has been in the past.
But the DNR allows that to be cut, right?
Yes, you could harvest it.
Harvest
You
it?
could harvest it.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Manager Taves.
Yeah, I went out at one point, must have been mid-July, late July, snorkeling to replace an anchor cable. And I came out looking like I had chicken pox. That stuff was so spiny.
Yeah,
There's points I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get back to the surface because I get so tangled up in it. So it
That's
was really thick out there.
that's coontail, and you were right. You're right in the middle of it. Yes.
Mhm.
Plus, some of that, if you got some marks in your body, you know what? There's a lot of macroinvertebrates that live on that coontail, on the aquatic plants in general. Some of them are predators, macrophytes, or macroinvertebrates. They'll bite you. They'll bite you. Some of that could have been bites as well.
Okay. It wasn't comfortable.
Yeah. It's not swimmer's itch. It's those macroinvertebrates
Yeah.
biting the heck out of you.
Any other comments on this? I just have one that I mentioned to you before the meeting started.
Yeah.
I had gotten several calls from people on Comfort Lake and part of the Lake Association concerned about the speed at which your boats were traveling when they were doing the surveys. And I'm talking about not the point intercepts, but the others. So if you could just for the record explain why that is
Sure.
and why you do it.
And that's a good slide that's up right here, that's Comfort Lake. We usually put our boat tracks on the map. So our boat track is where we go on the lake. You can see where we go on the lake. We do this zigzag pattern. And what we do is a combination of visual observations as well as with rake samples. So as we're covering the area around the lake, we'll cover a lot of the shoreline. And really, if you're going to, meander surveys are more for treatment. And so you need to have your plants kind of grouped, and we'll get that with this meander survey. And by that, I mean, if we can get if we get a number of dots close together and these meanders, then we can circle them up for treatment. We might be seeing that we're going fast, but actually we're not going that fast.
Mhm.
And we're going fast and we're not going too fast. we haven't missed much curly leaf or milfoil in years past. You can see where our tracks are in the areas that we've covered, and between visual observations and raking, we're getting most of the AI, we're getting the curly leaf and the milfoil. One thing about Comfort Lake is that it does drop off fairly quickly once you get out 300-400 feet from shore, and it's deep enough that there are no plants. So we are hitting the near shore area pretty hard. Sometimes we might scoot around the lilies because we can't treat in there anyway. So we are hitting the areas that are most treatable as well.
Yeah, and we do have a lot of lilies, both yellow and white on Comfort, all over Comfort, so that's a good thing. You mentioned something though about having a marker of 100-meter
Yeah.
or something. Can you explain that?
So what we try to do is actually it's every dock. We're sampling about every 100 meters, but really what we're doing is we're sampling at least once in front of every house.
Okay.
And so lots 100 feet wide roughly.
Mhm.
So we're treating we're looking at least trying to sample and get a point at every dock, which would give us an idea if there's a problem there or not. We have a couple docks, a couple points that are close together, then that's when we circle them up for control.
Wonderful.
So we're certainly are evaluating about every lake residence, their frontage.
I appreciate that explanation, and we'll be in touch if we need you to come to the
Okay,
Lake Association
Great.
meeting
be
in
happy
March.
to.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you, Steve. Excellent presentation, excellent work. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be up there on those
Yeah.
lakes.
Okay, the next item is 2026 Aquatic Plant Survey Service Agreement.
President Anderson, we have reached out to EOR and Blue Water Science, and requested the following, our normal monitoring on the lakes for aquatic invasive species. The quote from Blue Water Science was significantly less than the quote from EOR. EOR also let us know that they consider Blue Water Science legends in the delineation world. So staff would suggest that we contract with Blue Water Science again.
Any questions from the board? If not, we have two motions up here, so who would like to do the first?
I'll do the first one. I'll move to approve the,
I'm sorry?
It's either one.
Oh, it's
One's-
either?
Yeah,
Oh,
the first one is for Blue Water
yeah,
Science.
well, there
Second
you
for
go.
EOR.
Keep that in mind.
so I'll move to approve the 2026 Blue Water Science Agreement for a total contract of, I look at the number here, $24,650, and to authorize the administrator to sign the agreement on advice of counsel.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Manager Baki. Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
Manager Schottmuller,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Can move on.
President Anderson,
Yes,
I'd just like to thank Steve McComas for his good work. I've always appreciated the work he has done for Bone Lake and his delineation and follow-up. And look forward to working with him in the future.
very
Well,
nice.
thank you. I appreciate that too. Pleasure working with y'all, with everyone.
Thank you, Steve. Moving on, then, item C, under new business, Clean Water Partnership Loan, E, application.
And President Managers, if Family Heinz available to kind of go through this, I talked with Brad and heard today about this and whether we want to pursue something now at this time or consider a delay, and I've also communicated with the treasurer on the same topic. But we can kind of go over it initially here a little bit, and the board can ask questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right.
You want to talk?
Emily.
Yeah, okay.
Sure, thank you. Madam President, managers. So the purpose of this agenda item is to consider adopting a resolution. The resolution would be a necessary step in applying for a Clean Water Partnership loan. And just to recap, the board adopted its budget last year for the year 2026. It included loan revenues of $234,000. And that was kind of the minimum that was necessary to balance the budget. And so, that's what the budget calls for in terms of loan cash in order to pay the bills that are in the expense budget. So that is the amount that's in the budget. And if the board wanted to do any more, that would probably be a discussion. But that is what is allocated right now and would be necessary for the expenditures that are currently in the budget. That being said, if the board were to want to consider a change further down the road, a budget amendment or something like that, the district has the option to request a loan amendment. We can get a loan up to $750,000, and an amendment would take maybe 2 to 3 weeks to turn around. So is my summary.
How long would it take to get this loan? Do you think?
Point if we, got the resolution signed and submitted it, even early next week, I think still probably a 2 to 3 week turnaround for the Pollution Control Agency to do its administration, and then us to work with bond counsel to issue the note and get everything signed. We've worked with the same bond counsel that was kind of referred to us by Smith Partners. And the last time we went through this, it cost $2,500. And we're working with the same person, and I think we're getting pretty speedy with going through the forms because they're the same as the last few iterations.
And this would be then deposited, obviously, during the first half of the year. So that's when things are really tight for us. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, and I could just clarify that this loan, it acts almost like a grant in some ways. We need to report eligible expenditures to the Pollution Control Agency, and we need to incur those expenditures within the project period. So once that grant agreement is executed, the project period starts, we incur eligible expenditures, we can batch them and then request a reimbursement. We don't get the loan deposit up front. We incur the expenditures and report them and then get a reimbursement after.
Yes. Manager, excuse me, Mike.
That president, it's that just, and when we were talking earlier, it was a disbursement where we're spending it. It's not from just to differentiate between the grants that, where it is a reimbursement from the grant side, it's a disbursement on the loan, but as Emily noted, expense has to be incurred for qualifying elements and then just submitted to the MPCA, similar to our other loans that we've received. So the only thing that the board to consider really is the amount, again, because we would just need to, if we did something, going through the process will require the legal review. So whether you wanted to do the exact 232 or a different dollar amount, or wait and give it some consideration and bring it back to the future meeting.
When you say a different amount, you mean a higher amount?
Correct.
Okay, well, what is the judgment of our new finance manager on what the district should have?
Madam President, I mean, I could have Brad speak, but I don't think we're far enough into the year to really have an estimate of what that need is, because a lot of things can change within the next few months already. So, but I just wanted to make the board aware of that there is that option.
Okay,
Manager Anderson, I had a discussion and wrote a little note to the Brad and Emily and the Mike about monitoring our expenses as we go through the year to see what's coming up big and so forth, so we can kind of get on top whether we're running ahead or behind schedule on our cash flow that we have to have. And I also suggested that we have money set aside to as a reserve for larger projects. So any project over 100,000 that appears in that list each month should have a date on it of when that we expect that to be spent. So if it's over $100,000 and it's not going to be done and used until next September, then we should put, 926 on it so we know. Just a suggestion that we can monitor, where our big money's being tied up and how soon we have to use that.
there
President
is a-
Anderson,
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question about interest. Are we, if we did this and did the whole 234, are we paying interest on that originally, or are we only paying interest on the dollars that we pull out?
Go ahead, Mike.
Madam President, Madam Shop, the latter, only what we pull out.
Okay, so it's more like a line of credit.
That's a good way to look at it, yes. And then the interest starts basically within the 6 months. So if we were to wait until after July 1st, then it doesn't kick in until the following year. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm saying anything improper, Emily.
No, that sounds right. Thank you.
So it has to be dispersed, and that's when the 1.5% kicks in. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, within the 6 months. So if it's
Okay.
prior to July 1st, we'll get it
Yeah,
to start and
yeah.
the end of the year in December. And
But we can take it out, deposit it into our savings account and earn 4% interest. Right?
well, we
So-
would already have to, it's a disbursement from expenses already
Mhm.
incurred. So we don't get the money
Mhm.
just to have it.
Well, does it have any time sitting in the account? That's what I'm getting at. And if you get it from the MPCA, are you expending it right away? Or are you hanging on to it until you need it?
You're paying a
Madam
bill,
President.
you're paying a bill, Manager Anderson, so it's due immediately.
Well, that's my
Then-
question.
Yeah.
Madam President, Manager Schmaltz, so the money is held by the MPCA.
Mhm.
And then they approve a loan, they hold the money until we've expended something on an approved item that's
Mhm.
been, that we've submitted to them. And then we would get the money from a disbursement, and then we can use it to basically pay back ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, you're bringing this to the board, so there must be an intention to have some need for that now. I'm a little confused now because I thought this was going to be something that you needed to shore up our budget for the next, 5-month period while we wait for the first tax check to come.
Yeah, Madam President, managers, no, my apologies if it's, if the intention is not clear, that the, January is typically our business meeting timeframe where we take on a number of tasks that are business related to the district.
Mhm.
And given that this was in the budget with discussion with staff, we thought we would bring it forward. Just to gauge the board's direction, I guess, if nothing else, as to how we should proceed with both timing and the dollar amount.
President Anderson,
Yes.
I'd
Is
like
that
to
your-
ask our treasurer Schmaltz his opinion as to the amount of 234,000. Do you think that's appropriate?
Well, the question is, we spent a lot of time working on the budget and the forecast for next year, and we came up with a conscious decision to put 230,000 in there. We could have put more in, we could have put less in, but that would have an impact on the levy. So we settled on 230,000, not an exorbitant amount, but with all the concern about loans and all that by the CAC, we need to do our best to minimize that. So that's why I think we ended up with 230, and I think we should probably take that out so we have it if we need it the first 6 months.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
So it'll be approved, but not utilized until we need it. That's what you're
Correct.
saying. Okay, And it doesn't come to us, it sits with the MPCA until we require it.
That's correct.
All right, very good. That's the situation. Would
Emily,
anyone like-
you concur with that, right, Emily?
Yes, and I'll just add too that the purpose of doing this in January would be that we get through the administration and the contract execution, and we start the project period so that we can start, all of the eligible work that we do can be tracked against it. And we don't have to necessarily reimburse ourselves right away, but it has to be incurred within that active period. And so starting that active period earlier in the year gives us more room to incur eligible expenditures.
Yeah, that makes sense that you want to know that the money's there before you start down that pathway of work. All right, that sounds good. Any other questions?
I have another question then, since we brought this up. What happens on the other side if we're fortunate enough to manage our expenses, et cetera, and we don't need the 230,000? What happens then, Emily?
I
Go
can
ahead,
take
Mike.
this. I see Mike is raising his hand.
Yeah, manager just said, yeah, we don't, usually we have roughly 3 years if somewhere along the line to still make a request for disbursement, so it doesn't need to be within this time frame. And from the same line of reasoning, if something unexpected comes up and you needed more, you'd have to go through another similar request. Or as we did initially, we made a much larger request, and then we continued to draw on that as we needed over time. So those, you would have 3 years, and you could do a 1-year extension.
Okay.
Yes, but this is approved funds. We don't have to go through that
Correct.
setup period of 2 or 3 weeks. We know that it's available and it's an easier process when we need it, basically. Just like last time. I think that was $5 million approval, and we took it out in various chunks as we needed it over years. Okay. All right. Is everybody clear on that picture?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
So
Then-
I'll move to adopt the resolution 26-01-02, authorizing the district administrator to apply for Clean Water Partnership Loan E.
There's a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Any further comments? If not, roll call, please.
Manager Schmaltz.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
should the
Go ahead.
motion reference the amount authorized for the loan, the $234,000?
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's add that to the motion.
That's in the resolution, though.
Oh,
We
you're
have a-
correct. Yes, my apologies.
Okay,
Right?
okay. All right, very good. Let's proceed with the motion. Vote, please.
Right. Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
Manager Schottmuller.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Unanimous, passes. And now we have to do the resolution. Here we go.
Was the resolution. That was the only recommended motion. So we are good.
But I just noticed that I don't see the 230,000 referenced in there. So I was mistaken, I think. But
Yeah,
please check that. I don't see it mentioned in the resolution, so Councilman Holtman is correct. We should probably add it to the motion then, in that part.
I can have the minutes reflect that.
Okay, great.
okay,
That
so
covered,
we don't.
Council Holtman? Okay, good.
We don't need to do another motion then on the resolution.
The motion can reference the 234,000 with unanimous consent.
Okay, so we don't need to do this one on the resolution though itself, right? Moves to adopt the resolution.
I believe this is the motion that was just passed.
Mhm. Okay. All right, very good. So we're done. unanimous. We'll make those corrections and that will be part of the final document. Okay, next item is the Aquatic Invasive Species Program year-end summary.
Board President, board managers, we originally presented this report at the December 18th, 2025 meeting. We have updated it to incorporate two suggestions. A historical lake treatment area graph suggested by the Community Advisory Committee, and then the requested changes to all lake budgets reflecting that contributions from Bone Lake Association, the Scandians Lion Club, and the city of Scandia is used only for the watercraft inspection program.
Okay, any questions? All right, the motion's in front of us. Who would like to accept the report?
I will make the motion to approve the 2025 Aquatic Invasive Species Program year-end summary.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you. Roll call?
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
Manager Schottmuller.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to D, Lower St. Croix Policy Committee January meeting. There is no meeting.
You skipped B and C.
I did?
We should have the 2025 year-end watercraft inspection report and then Tim's Marina before that one.
No, I'm under number 6, new business. Item D. You're under.
We just did 7A.
Madam President, we removed that from the agenda, remember?
Okay, I know, but it's still here. So I was just gonna
Okay.
say that it's been canceled.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, yeah, you're right. I skipped over that one. Anyway, the St. Croix Policy Committee January meeting was canceled for lack of anything to talk about, apparently. Bye-bye, thank you. So we don't need to talk about that. Old business B.
President Anderson, members of the board, the 2020 Watercraft Inspection Program year-end summary was also presented at the December 18th meeting. No changes or updates were requested.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from the board?
Mike, will this be on the website so we can access it on the website if we need to get data out of the report?
Yes,
And how soon will it be on the website?
it should be on the website currently.
Okay,
I will update it on Monday with the full report with no memo on it.
Oh, thank you, Tori. Sorry.
and the same is true with the AIS report we just approved?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We're all cool, so we don't need to do anything? We have to,
We do need a motion.
yes, we do need a motion to accept the final report.
I'll make a
So-
motion to approve the 2025 year-end watercraft inspection program report.
I will second.
Thank you.
Manager
Roll call?
Schmaltz.
Mhm.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
Manager Schottmuller.
I'm gonna abstain because I missed it.
President Anderson.
Aye. Passes. Thank you. Next item, C, Tim's Marina Environmental Assessment Worksheet.
President Anderson, members of the board, at the directive of the board, staff and EOR reviewed the environmental assessment worksheet. And we have provided some comments for review by the board, and there's a motion to submit those comments to the city of Forest Lake. Dr. Wilkinson is also available to answer any technical questions.
Well, I think, Anne, if you're available to comment the report, thank you, the EAW. That would be helpful, I think.
Yes, Madam President, managers, I can give a summary of the comments that we worked on together with staff. In general, we wanted them to provide more information about the potential impacts of the additional boat traffic on the lake, either through climate impacts, surface water, or erosion, sediment or shoreline erosion. We also wanted them to include Comfort Lake Forest Lake rules in their discussion about permitting requirements. And we wanted them to comment about if the added parking and traffic on the turf, if the variance were to be granted to continue to park on that, would increase erosion potential on that site. We also wanted to point out that they did not provide any discussion about the number or type of watercraft changes that the water body would experience under the current and projecting condition. And we would like them to discuss that in the context of the lake carrying capacity of Forest Lake, because after doing a review of what the Forest Lake Association presented, it does seem that there's a potential for those boat slips to increase the boat activity capacity above the carrying capacity threshold for Forest Lake. And we also wanted to encourage them to—
Manager Anderson?
Just a minute, let her finish. Please let her finish, and then you can ask your question. Go ahead.
All right, it's just that it's hard to go back after she's been through 11 questions, but that's fine.
I'm okay.
Okay.
I just have one last one, which is just reiterating that they should continue to state that they would like to consider the opportunity of working with the watershed district in the aid of watershed district goals to prevent AIS spread at lake access sites.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I just read this right before the meeting. So one of the things that seems, you're asking them to do all this, which is fine, but do they know how to do any of this? Are they even qualified to do it? And we don't want them to make up their own mind about this unless without some technical expertise. So I guess that's the question I'm raising. Do they have someone that's writing this EAW that's qualified to answer all the questions you're raising?
Manager Schmaltz, they are having a consultant agency do the EAW on their behalf.
Okay.
I can look it up who it is quickly.
I think that's a statute that they have to do their own. The EAW is that sort of milder one. Yeah.
Yeah, there are two different, they did do, I forget what the exact terms are, but I'd say there's an EAW light and an actual EAW, and this was the light version.
Yeah, if you could confirm that for us, Chuck, and walk through that process on how this works. I'm talking about the environmental assessments.
Yes.
The other question I had was on number 7. You're asking if there's a wetland delineation on record, but it's not included in this. Do we know that there is delineation? Should we just ask them to include it? And then and maybe we should ask if there was any violations of the wetland. For example, if there's a wetland on their property, isn't there supposed to be a buffer zone 25 feet protecting the wetland?
Manager Schmaltz, I was on the TEP panel that did the wetland delineation. So that was done this year. There hasn't been any activities on the site that would have triggered the district buffer rules. There may be city setbacks for the wetlands also to consider, but there's no watershed buffer on site.
Okay.
And
Chuck,
the other,
go ahead. Oh, let's have Chuck finish his explanation for our new members on how this EAW stuff works.
I'm sorry, I thought he was going to do that offline. I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
All right, very good, thank you. Accepted. Chuck?
Madam Chair and managers, the purpose of the EAW is for the decision maker, that is the city council, to have all of the information that it needs to make a reasoned decision regarding the potential environmental impacts of its proposed approval action. The EAW process doesn't disturb the fact that it is the city council who has the judgment and discretion to make that decision. It's really a process. The statute imposes a process, and it allows everybody to bring concerns forward. And then the city council, in good faith, is expected to look at what's been presented to it and determine whether it has all the information necessary to be comfortable that it's aware of all the potential environmental impacts before it takes action. And when the EAW is performed, it's an introductory process to determine whether there's a need for an environmental impact statement, which is a much more extensive evaluation of particular impacts. So presently, what the district would be doing with its comments would be directing them to the city council to say, we believe there's a potential for some environmental impacts related to this issue and this particular issue. The EAW has not addressed these, or it hasn't addressed them sufficiently. And so we would put it in front of you and ask that you make sure these impacts are reviewed. And then it would be up to the city council. City council could say, thank you, we're satisfied, never mind. Or the city council would have a good faith obligation to use consultants with adequate expertise to look into those questions and come back, put them in front of the council.
Okay, any questions? All right, so let's move on. I don't think that there's any action that we need to do. Is there, other than instruct EOR to work with the city?
Authorize the managing administrator to submit them as comments.
Yeah,
It would be, the recommended action would be to submit the comments through the formal process, but you can also utilize your existing relationship to raise these issues separately as you think appropriate.
okay. We'll leave that with the administrator to determine, speaking with the staff, or including the engineers. I'm sure that's your process anyway, right? In a situation like this, when you need more technical experience.
We've had initial conversations with the city during our regularly scheduled monthly development meetings. But we certainly could discuss these issues with the city folks outside of the comments as well.
Well, I don't think you need our motion to do that. That's part of your duty, right? So why are we having a motion to direct you to do this? When it's a necessary thing on this situation. I'm struggling with why we're doing directional motions for that, what should be just your job description.
Wouldn't this
Madam
carry
President, I just-
would this carry the weight of the board rather than just staff talking to them?
Well, any decision they make is carrying the weight of the board because they're instructed to do that. So, you know, I mean, if we need to make a motion, we can, but I consider this part of what their duties are in this matter, including using EOR. So if you want us to make a motion, we will.
Madam President, I guess my only feedback on that is the previous meeting, council had communicated that at present, the decision is really lies within the city,
Mhm,
in terms of the question at hand, in terms of additional slips and such.
mhm,
But the district role is not in that.
mhm.
We're looking at a few things. To see whether or not, anything may potentially be of, such that would involve the district. But right now, I mean, we don't have a request for a permit, we don't have, so, then there was an interest by the Forest Lake Association to ask some of these questions. So we're just trying to make sure, as has been communicated to us, that we're staying in our lane. And again, that it would be
Mhm.
appropriate. I think that, from our interactions with the city is that they know that the board is directing this action, but that's fine. I'm comfortable either way.
Yeah, I think it's important that, because we're really, the Lake Association is asking for this. We don't have the expertise, speaking for the Lake Association, to have some of these insights or opinions, and that's why it's important that this be brought up as part of the consideration. Otherwise, it will be completely ignored. And on that point, I want to suggest another thing too, is that if this is going to be a permit that's requested from the city, normally when other permits are done, if you don't require, if your property doesn't meet all the requirements of the city, you don't get your permit. So since this has to do with shore erosion and so forth, it's been out here, I think that the city should be responsible in assessing the property in terms of how it meets the shoreline and tree ordinances of the city. It's a commercial operation that's going to try to make a profit on a public water body that's supported by a lot of other taxpayers. And at the very least, they should meet the requirements as outlined by the city in terms of shoreline and tree ordinances that relate to the water quality of the property as it impacts the water. You would think they want to do this just out of the courtesy of being a good water steward partner. But I think if we ask them to do it, they would be probably provide some incentive for them to actually go ahead and do that.
Madam Chair,
Okay, yes, go ahead, Chuck.
I think the motion would simply allow staff to submit the comments as comments endorsed by the board. So that would carry a bit more weight. But it's just up to whether one of you wishes to make that motion and act on that.
So I asked a question to the board of whether or not we should actually include in one of these points the fact that the current ordinances of the city that pertains to properties on the lake with regards to tree and shoreline, and this definitely impacts the lake and this property. So that should be considered in the evaluation of the city.
Oh,
You muted Steve.
Steve,
Yep.
you dropped.
Okay, what happened?
I
didn't
still hear
Steve at
Steve.
all.
I could hear him.
I could hear him.
We couldn't down here.
Our internet connection's unstable. Let's give 1 second here.
Okay,
So you want me to repeat that or summarize real quickly? What I'm asking for is that the city has a shoreline and a tree ordinance that impacts properties on the shoreline lake. We're asking them, that should be an important consideration as whether or not they get the permit, is whether they're in conformance with the permit, with the requirements that affect that property, that affect the lake. And it gets down to a basic principle why we're here, to make sure that happens.
well, I understand all of that, but our rules only allow us to go deeper if there is a variance on a shoreline property. Am I right on that?
If there was a variance on impervious surfaces, our buffer rule would be triggered.
Mhm.
But currently, none of the proposed work of increasing the boat slips would trigger our rules.
Okay.
I
I think, we worked with the local units of government when the district was first new, the first 10 years or so. And we would bring ideas to the LGUs about best practices and some ideas, of course, to improve water quality. And a lot of those were incorporated into those projects. So I think that we can still, if our relationship is good enough with our city councils and the administrators, I hope they are, we can certainly bring these ideas to enhance the project and give further water quality impact to that site. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So if we need to do this motion to make you feel more safe about going that direction, then I think we should do it. But that should be the way that we operate, is to work with our LGUs to do the best project that we can for the local water body impacted. So I will make this motion to authorize the district administrator to submit the attached EAW comments to the city of Forest Lake. And I would add any other comments that might be helpful to improve water quality. That's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
Manager Schottmuller,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next is item 8, report of staff, administrator report.
And president, managers, I think maybe one thing I'll just call to everyone's attention is the 26th coming up next week. We have our Loons and Local Lakes, our Watershed Connections event. And please RSVP to Adam for planning to attend. There's another one on February 9th on PFAS. So other than that, staff are continuing to work on various grant applications. And I think we've went through all our AS moves, so we're good there.
Well, I'm going to sign up for those 2 events right now. Put me down. I think these sound very, very interesting. There was a loon expert that came to one of the Forest Lake Association meetings some years ago, and that was really fascinating. Yeah, that was really good. So I don't know if it's the same person or not, but anything about the loons is good. I like that. So I'm in. Anything else that you want to highlight?
No, Madam President, managers,
Okay.
take any questions?
Any questions for Mike? Comments?
Yeah, one question on page 3 under projects, the Comfort Lake. We're talking about amending the grant to move the project to direct drainage. Does that mean to move it to something on Sunrise River?
No, presently if I'm looking at the right one here, we had one where we had a site that was, had talked to the landowner. They changed their mind, and so there's one, we're looking at something that is on a different part of Comfort Lake. So that direct, not, I mean.
On Comfort Lake or in the Comfort Lake?
Drainage.
Drainage, yeah, system. Yeah, that's what I understood. So it's more direct drainage into Big Comfort that you have a project for instead of kind of through Little Comfort into Big. That's how I understood it.
Correct. Well, it was to be between Shallow Pond and Big Comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we'll go into the Sunrise and then to Big Comfort.
Mhm.
Yeah, this would be a drain here that goes into Big Comfort and then, but it'll benefit both Big Comfort and the Sunrise farther downstream,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, good. All right, that sounds good.
Does that answer your question, Ed?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions of Mike? All right, let's move on. EOR?
Good evening, Madam President and managers. A couple of updates. We are currently working on analyzing the monitoring data that was collected in 2025 field season and preparing the report that will be presented in the coming months. And then Heath Avenue iron enhanced sand filter 90% plans have been submitted to the city of Wyoming, who are doing the review, and we're putting the project manual together so that bids can be submitted in late February, early March, with an anticipation of construction starting in June. And we hope everyone stays safe and warm in this big cold front we're having.
Yes, thank you. And nobody gets drug out of their house with just their shorts on. God, in below zero weather. Let's hope for that too. The next item is Smith Partners. Chuck, anything new in the world of law?
No, aside from your last reference, there's nothing to report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Reporter treasurer.
Yes, we have a large income coming in this month, so we've got $2,810,354.35, and there are two big. Each of our half of our tax levy grants have come in. One for Chisago and one for Washington County. So one was 198,000, and the second one was 623,000, I believe. And then the third thing is we had that large grant for Bone Lake South Phase 1 come in at 1.9 million. So with a lot of income coming in, and we'll need it for the first 6 months to get through. So then our total expenses for the year for the month are $2,531,163.39. And I'd like to request the board authorize or have a motion to pay those expenses. At the same time, we also need a transfer to the bank of $154,000 to cover that. Are there any questions or comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
If I may I just note, if managers have looked at the invoice, our invoice this month is $21,000, which is quite high, and I just want to note that the bulk of that, about $16,000, is a pass-through for the expenses of the real estate counsel who assisted in the Bone Lake South property acquisition.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate it. Any other questions or comments? If not, a motion is in order. I will make the motion to accept the treasurer's report, to pay the bills in the amount of, where is that? Direct expense. Where is it? Where's it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Or,
the 2 million? Yeah. 2,531,000. I'm gonna get this
No.
wrong. $163.39. Is that it?
No, it's $154,000.
Okay, there it is. And to transfer the money to pay the bills.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Roll call.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
Manager Schottmuller,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Motion carries. The bills will be paid.
Madam President,
Yes,
I'd just note that, both for the record and for the members of the public, that the, reference to the expenses on the legal side for the pass-through is covered by the grant.
yes, yes. That's a good point to make. Did everybody hear that?
Please
Okay.
repeat.
Would you repeat it?
Yes, just noting that the legal fees covered by the real estate attorney for the transaction related to Bone Lake South is covered by the grant itself. So that's an eligible expense, so it's not district levy dollars covering that, but rather it's covered by the grant.
Okay, got it.
That was part of the 2 million.
Correct.
Yes, that was actually a receipt for us. Okay, very good. There is no other business before the board unless there's something, one
I just-
last thing.
One
You
last
wanna-
comment. Tori, I'm going to be coming in probably after 1 o'clock to sign the checks. Is that going to be a problem?
Madam President,
You're gonna have to talk with Brad.
managers. My typical practice for the office is that if the school district closes, the office will be closed, staff will work remotely, so would you be able to come in Monday?
Certainly. Yeah, that's fine.
Right, it's early enough in the month, we're not pushed up against any deadlines. For getting
Yeah,
checks out.
Yeah, still, I mean, Forest Lake's going to be closed tomorrow, aren't they? I saw it in the news today.
Right, yeah, the schools are closing all over the place, but yes, locally, the schools were closed earlier today. So, out of, I guess, somewhat of abundance of caution, but also I know from my experience working with, in the emergency management world, police and fire and ambulance, people like, people to stay off the roads in such weather, so they don't have to come out and retrieve them. So, since it's non-emergency related, we'll put a note on the door and staff can still function remotely, so.
And Tori, I'll send you a note telling you when I'll be in on Monday.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, everybody, is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
my apology. It's a board direction item.
Oh, I always forget you. Sorry. Go ahead. We
Uh,
want no direction.
Okay, very briefly, staff will look into the DNR restrictions on the use of dicot for curly leaf pondweed. And then I also just have a note that as of Monday, Tori will be updating the AIS and watercraft inspection reports and putting those on the website.
And that's it?
That's it.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second? Is there a second? I'll second. You guys want to stay, don't you? All right. Roll call, please.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
Manager Schottmuller,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Good night, everyone.
Yeah,
Good
stay
night.
warm,
Stay
everyone.
warm.
Night.